This is the April 1st, 2014 regular meeting of the Sammamish City Council. Welcome. My name is Tom Vance, and I'm pleased to serve as your mayor. Madam City Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Mayor Tom Vance.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kathy Huckabee. Here. Councilmember Bob Keller.
Present.
Councilmember Don Herring.
Here.
Councilmember Tom Odell.
Here.
Councilmember Ramiro Valderrama.
Present.
Councilmember Nancy Whitten.
I'm here.
Okay, can we have Councilmember Keller, who just got back from Hawaii, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next is approval of the agenda. Was there anyone who had an issue with any?
I would like to ask that item number 3 on the consent agenda be removed for further discussion.
Okay, we'll remove item number 3, and can we, that's
End of new business?
new business? Okay. All right. That being as amended, do we have anything else on the agenda, on the consent agenda?
As revised.
As revised? Okay, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as revised, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We have no student liaison reports tonight. We do have one recognition tonight for the President's Volunteer Service Awards. So I'm going to go to the podium along with Deputy Mayor Kathy Huckabee, and we'll be giving out some awards. So we'll do that. Okay, the President's Service Awards recognizes United States citizens and lawfully admitted permanent residents of the United States who have achieved a required number of hours of service over a 12-month time period, and we have several of our citizens who qualify this year. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Bronze Award recipients. These are awarded to adults who have achieved between 100 and 174 volunteer service hours. And the first one to get the award is Marielle Cools. Please come forward. Marielle currently serves as chair of the Arts Fair Subcommittee to the Arts Commission. She's been key in various arts, the Arts Fair and various other things over the past few years. Thank you very much. Okay. Next we have Craig Ross. Craig is celebrating his 6th year volunteering for the city with Public Works and Parks, and it says here that he had volunteered 400 times since 2009, resulting in 1,479 hours for the city of Sammamish. So thank you, Craig. Next is Claridel Shedd. Claridel serves on the Arts Commission, supports the Arts Commission behind the scenes by doing a number of other things with the Historical Society and other, and I have an attitude here. Attitude more than age determines energy. That's her credo. So thank you, Claridel.
Thank you.
All right. One more Bronze Award recipient, Barbara Jersa. Serves as the lead arts commissioner on the quarterly exhibits here at City Hall, which I very much enjoy myself. Very much connected with the Puget Sound art community and has been on the Arts Commission for 10 years. So thank you very much. All right. We have one person we have silver award recipients. These are adults who have achieved between 250 and 499. Just one more hour would have gotten you gold. 499 volunteer service hours. Samantha McCrae is not here tonight. She's volunteered a lot on special events teams and created graphics and a number of other things, but we'll be giving her award to her later. Lynn Garrettson is here. Lynn Garrettson serves on the Arts Commission, worked especially on special arts, Sammamish, bringing art to special needs children. So thank you, Lynn. And we have Anna McCrae. She is a longtime chair to the annual arts fair, curator of the mock artwork as a part of the Arts in the Workplace Enrichment Program, and developed an art program for Tent City. So thank you, Anna. Okay. One of our Gold Award recipients. Gold Awards are awarded to adults who have achieved 500 or more volunteer service hours, and young adults who have achieved 250 or more volunteer service hours. Abhishek Yoshi is not here tonight. We will give the award to her, or he, I'm not even sure, him at another time, but we want to recognize him as a member of the Sammamish Youth Board, volunteers for a lot of special events and parks programs, represents the city and the youth board at other organizations when volunteering. So congratulations to Abhishek Yoshi. Thank you very much. And finally, our other Gold Award recipient is Daphne Robinson. Served for many years on the Arts Commission as chair, was City Volunteer of the Year in 2012, and has spearheaded efforts to get For Culture funds as well as other funds supporting the Arts Commission, and has continually volunteered over 500 hours. 500 years. That'll be hard. 500 hours per year since volunteering hours have been recorded by the city. Thank you very much, Daphne. And thank you to all the volunteers. You all do a fabulous job for our city. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council. 3 minutes limit per person, or 5 minutes if representing the official position of a recognized community organization. And I have a list. The first person I have is Carrie Nielsen. Please give your name and address. Thank you.
Yes. Carrie Nielsen, 243 247th Place Northeast, Sammamish, 98074. I'm with the Lake Washington Citizens Levy Committee, and we have a bond coming up the end of April. We'd like to really encourage both your individual support of that bond, as well as when the time comes, your collective support of that bond. Some people have asked, well, what's in it for Sammamish? Because there aren't any modernization or any construction projects for Sammamish on that. And as you know, when they set up the projects of what needs to be accomplished over a particular period of time, they prioritize by the things that need to be done most. 3 years ago when we had a levy, it was for Redmond High School and for East Lake High School here in Sammamish, and that's how we got our additions onto the school. And had places like Kirkland, who's also in the Lake Washington School District, not voted for us, then at Redmond High School, we would have had about 21 portables in the parking lot, and at East Lake High School, we would have had another 21 portables in the parking lot in order to house that additional 9th grade class that was added in. So this is an opportunity for us as a community to show that community's support to Kirkland and to Redmond as we pass this bond so that they can get their projects accomplished, so that when the time comes that it's time for our projects 4 years again down the road to be on the ballot, then they will in turn vote for our projects to be able to be completed. So obviously, when you have strong school districts, it is absolutely like money in the bank for homeowners. It affects property values and makes such a big difference for our schools. If we end up having things like double shifting at schools or busing kids away from their community schools due to overcrowding with additional building, because we are slated to see about 4,000 new students within the next 8 years. So this is an opportunity to scale back the bond that was brought to the people in February that just barely failed and work on simply those emergency projects that need to be done right now, and then come back again later and complete the additional projects. And again, some people have asked why reconstruction versus modernization with some buildings. If you look at the cost-benefit analysis there, oftentimes the buildings that were built, say, in the early 1970s were not built according to current safety and building standards, and to go in and deal with lead pipes and asbestos and all of those other things, as well as make them so that they are appropriate to today's education and the and instructional and technology needs that we have right now. It is significantly less expensive at times to rebuild as opposed to modernization. So hope that we can count on your support, as I said, both individually and collectively for our end of April bond. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Joe McCarron. Please give your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Joe McCarron. I represent Broadmoor Estates Homeowners Association. My address is 24107 Northeast 29th Street. We're still here. And last time I met with you was 2 meetings ago. One of the things I didn't mention was where Broadmoor Estates was located. So I'd like to kind of start off with that and then get into why I'm here as far as the R1 zoning potential analysis that you'll be doing. So Broadmoor Estates is located on the very north of the city of Sammamish off 244th. If you were traveling on Redmond Falls City Road, Highway 202, turn south on 244th, there's a sign that says, "Welcome to the city of Sammamish." That entrance is Broadmoor Estates. That's us. And we are an R1 neighborhood, and that surrounding area that's open, undeveloped, is also currently R1. So a couple things. If you decide, and the Planning Commission decides to move forward as part of the comprehensive plan to do this R1 zoning analysis, we just ask 4 things. One, the question comes is, does this analysis really need to happen to meet your GMA growth targets? In a letter that we sent to the city on February 26, we wrote, "It appears that the city is already meeting its adopted growth targets, as recently stated in a staff report for the Conley Reed rezone request." That report says, "It does not appear that modifications to land use and zoning maps in single-family areas to accommodate additional housing units will be necessary to reach our adopted growth targets." And then the letter goes into more detail. The second one is, please take into consideration environmental and transportation analysis. R1 exists for a reason. It's got very sensitive areas. For instance, Broadmoor Estates is on a very steep slope. We have drainage that goes through our neighborhood. We have a stream that goes through our neighborhood. We have wildlife that goes through our neighborhood. So I ask that if this project comes up, please take that in consideration. Also, transportation. 244th has a lot of traffic. So there's some safety issues that we've actually brought to the city in our neighborhood where there's accidents that take place all the time outside our neighborhood. So please take in consideration traffic flow if you decide to do this analysis. Third one is the economic analysis, and this all came out of a request for a pilot project, if you will, for R1, where the assumption was that current R1 zoning does not afford property owners a fair return on their investment. What we would like to ask you to do is, if you decide to do this analysis, please take the time to do the economic analysis and verify that assumption. And the fourth topic is future compatibility with King County zoning. Like I said, Broadmoor Estates is right on the northern edge of the city. People are coming into the city on our street on 244th. That road has been extended. So we ask that you consider any type of transition, or what would you like the city of Sammamish to look like as people are coming into the neighborhood? Would you like to keep it as R1 and transition into the city? Would you like to just develop right up to that line? So those are our requests. If that project comes to you as part of the comprehensive plan, you have a letter from Broadmoor Estates on file, and we just ask that you take these items into consideration. Any questions?
Well, we don't do questions, but thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Very much. Next I have, and I'll try to get this right, Archana Samiu?
Yes, you got it right.
Good. I got the advice of my deputy mayor. So.
Okay, I'm not tall. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. My name is Archana Sunil. I'm at 21002 Northeast 44th Street. Dear council members, I heard yesterday that the agenda for today's meeting had changed and that the endorsement of the bond is no longer in it. But I had planned on it, and so I'm going to talk about it anyway. Because, Mr. Mayor and council members, it's all about planning ahead and being ready. It's the same idea that applies to the school district bond as well. I am a mother of 2 children in the district, and the district anticipates 4,000 new students in the next few years, and the question is, where will we house them? And where will we house them in such a manner that they are college and career ready to compete in the global market? I am asking the council to endorse this measure, and here are 5 concrete reasons to do so. Number 1, according to a study by the Partnership for Learning, Washington is the nation's #1 STEM economy and has the highest number of STEM jobs in the nation. Yet, the state ranks 49 out of 50 states in the mismatch between the skills required for the available jobs and the individuals with those skills. How are we going to prepare our children for this opportunity that awaits them without giving them adequate access to a STEM education? So supporting the bond will allow the district to build a second STEM school in the Kirkland area. 2, we all know how overcrowded classrooms can negatively impact our child's learning experience. And supporting the bond will allow the district to build 3 new elementary schools, 1 new middle school, rebuild and expand Juanita High School, and add an addition to the Lake Washington High School. Number 3, let's face it, none of us wants to see our children being educated in portables. Does it make sense to spend $300,000 per portable for a makeshift classroom instead of investing in permanent and safer classrooms for our children? Voting yes on the bond will allow the district to invest in high-quality and sustainable learning environments. Number 4, we all agree and know that students who learn in kindergarten learn more as adults, and that kindergarten interventions matter a great deal in long-term outcomes. And voting on the bond will help us keep our full-day kindergartens and not risk eliminating or reducing the access. What if this was your child, or your grandchild, or your neighbor's child that needed to go to kindergarten? Imagine a scenario where the district has to shift to year-round school with multiple shifts. Students attend school throughout the year with about a couple of weeks off every 2 to 3 months. How would that affect families with childcare and scheduling issues? How would that add to the financial burdens of childcare? How would that affect the ability of high school students to find summer employment? And how would this impact students who could use remedial or supplemental classes during their time off in the summer? So voting on the bond and supporting the bond will prevent such a scenario and allow the district to continue the traditional school year without disrupting families and student progress. And lastly, supporting the bond will allow the district to operate with the new spaces without eliminating valuable after-school enrichment activities that our PTAs strive to provide. Please join me and lots of other concerned parents in this room to endorse the April 22nd bond. The ballots drop tomorrow, and so please consider an endorsement of the bond. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Seidensticker, is that correct? Or you can correct me when you get there.
Hi, I'm Bob Seidensticker, 19836 Northeast 42nd Street. I understand you've got, on your item 4 is to discuss the procedure for evaluating the gates and barricades. I would like to, you've been very patient with me in previous meetings as I talked about the difficulties. I live, by the way, just west of that gate. You've been very patient in letting me tell you about the difficulties that the city would incur in opening that. I just want to make a very quick request. I understand that at your recent offsite, you had sort of a straw poll evaluating the different gates to find out which ones we might consider just getting off the plate right off the bat before the procedure is discussed. I would encourage you to do that for the Northeast 42nd Street barricade. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to give public comment? Anyone else? Not seeing anyone else. Public comment is closed. Thank you very much. Well, we've already got ahead of ourselves and approved the consent agenda. Why don't I go ahead and ask for a approval of the consent agenda as revised again, just to make sure we did it right. All in favor?
So moved?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Do we have a second?
I think we're good. Going down, we have no public hearings, no unfinished business. I should mention, and I should have said at the beginning, we do have an executive session tonight later on concerning potential litigation, and I'll mention that more as we go along. Into new business, we have a new number 3, Councilmember Odell wanted to pull item 3 from the agenda. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a housekeeping thing. I noted that I was absent on March 17th. This is item number 3 in the packet. And yes, I was absent, but I thought I called in for excusal.
We did excuse you, as I recall. Yeah.
Okay, the minutes do not reflect that.
Well,
You want a
let's-
reconsideration of that?
Excuse Councilmember Odell and Councilmember Jaron, seconded, motion carried unanimously. 6-0.
Okay.
Tom, you meant the minutes of the 11th, I think was where you had the consent.
Was it?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
while we're on
Councilmember-
the minutes of March 17th, perhaps the first line could be changed. It says the mayor, Tom Odell,
Well,
called.
that's a real problem.
another
Since he wasn't there, you know.
Maybe we could rewrite the whole
Clearly,
thing.
he was in spirit.
Do we need a general revision?
The other thing is, as Melanie pointed out, on March, what was it? 11th,
Before?
I was actually here.
You came.
For part of the meeting?
Late.
Yeah.
I
We-
got a-
He came late.
He came late.
I came back
uh,
early and came to the council meeting
Were you,
late.
were you at the study session, not the regular meeting, or would you sit part of the regular meeting? or-
I think I got here in time for the study session.
So if we could make a note that Councilmember Odell was, arrived to join the discussion on the study session. Do we need to have a, I think that's just a change.
Amending the meeting, so meeting minutes, so let's just make a motion and then second and approve.
Do we have a motion to make those changes to
So moved.
both?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 4, establishing an evaluation process for existing barricades and emergency gates on city streets. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we do have a report. I'm going to ask Public Works Director, Assistant City Manager Laura Philpott to make a report on this. Laura?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I have about 8 slides just to briefly go through the history of the connectivity process to date, and then share and highlight the changes that are proposed in the resolution for your consideration this evening. So I'll try to go quickly. If I go
Or
to...
before you launch, we're not seeing anything on our screen here.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll go relatively quickly through the process, so if there's questions or you'd like me to pause on anything, please let me know. In 2009, there was a kickoff with the City Council, talked about what would a successful process look like, and we came up with some general guidelines with the council, working together with staff. From there, in July 2009, we kicked off the public process, just in general, barricades citywide. We did a bus tour. We had some public meetings to review the information we learned at the bus tour. And we talked a lot about how do we get public engagement, how do we empower the public to be involved in the process. Fast forwarding to the fall of 2009, we held some citywide workshops. We had great attendance. We had 2 different workshops over 80 people attending each one, where we got a lot of feedback from the public about what kind of criteria we should use if and when we got to the point of evaluating barricades. March, staff took that information from those meetings and distilled it and brought it back in March, and then came back again in June of 2010, sharing the draft evaluation criteria with council. And at the end of that process, what's listed on your screen here is the criteria that was established through those meetings. And at that time, at the end of that process, council selected Southeast 32nd Street as the first location to use the evaluation criteria, and the idea was we would test it out and see if there's something that needed to be different, and see how the process worked. So from fall 2010 through the winter of 2011, we did go through an extensive process with the Southeast 32nd Street neighborhood. There was a number of 2 open house meetings. There was a mitigation plan that was developed and constructed, implemented. And then in the winter of 2011, we began collecting data. We shared that, brought that back. We also solicited and received feedback on the process in general. We had some meetings with the city council and shared the data we had collected. We also shared the public feedback, and some more public feedback was shared directly to council at those meetings. And then in April 2012, April 3rd actually, the process was memorialized in a resolution. And that resolution, Resolution 2012-492, and this was the final process that was listed. It identified the barricade location to study, determine the area of influence. And I just want to pause on this just so everybody understands. The area of influence means we didn't set a specific distance, like if you live 500 feet, but we used our transportation model to say what streets are influenced if the barricade exists or doesn't exist on traffic changes. So it would be very different and very specific to each barricade or gate location in the city. Staff would gather data, engage the public with an open house number 1, evaluate the gate using the pre-established criteria and the feedback received and the information received at the open house, and then revisit the public, sharing staff recommendations, city council review, and then the 2 bold items were ones that were changed after the 32nd Street based on public feedback, that we would need to do some more work with the public on any traffic mitigation plan that was developed, and specifically it was called out in the resolution that a 3rd open house would be needed to share the proposed mitigation plan, so that residents and neighbors would have an opportunity to share their feedback, feel more involved in that before it was reviewed by the full city council. And then in that resolution, it also included the after data review. So why are we here tonight? Well, we're here tonight because there was some, we did have some, this did come up at the city council retreat, and there was some discussion about making some minor modifications to the resolution, which would provide some additional flexibility for the city council. Currently, the way the resolution 2012-492 is written, in section 2, it says that all existing barricades and emergency gates within the city of Sammamish shall be evaluated individually. Whereas the council should have the prerogative to decide when and where these evaluation criteria is used. So the draft resolution in front of you actually repeals the 2012-492 and replaces it with the resolution in front of you. And it does have this, I believe a track changes version was placed in front of you this evening to make it easier to follow where those changes. There are a few other changes throughout the document, but most of those are just kind of clean up, adding a the or capitalizing. There's nothing, the substance change was in section 2, and then the section 1 repealing the original resolution. So that's what I had to present and share with you tonight. Our request is that you consider the resolution in front of you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions first. Deputy Mayor Huckabee.
Yes. My question is the sphere of influence. and I have a real concern about the sphere of influence that was used on the 32nd Street barricade. Just for full disclosure, I live in the neighborhood. I live on 37th Street, right off of 212th. And when the 32nd Street barricade was opened, none of us in our part of the community on the west side of that barricade were included. And you received an email the other day from another neighbor who lives much closer, who raised her concerns because she'd read in the paper that people were talking about putting perhaps some additional ways to slow traffic down on 32nd. Part of the neighborhood DNA is the fact that we used to have only one way in and one way out. So there was always a concern about what happened if Pine Lake could not come, if there was an emergency and they were not there or they needed more trucks. And there's still a real concern with 32nd Street with the barriers that are there, and then if somebody were to put some other traffic mitigation slowing techniques in, that it would really create more of a problem in getting the emergency vehicles into our neighborhood. Plus, the traffic, the scope of the traffic impact, I'm not sure what your traffic plans or how you develop that, but there are so many people from the neighborhood when they head out toward the QFC area use that street, and yet the only additional traffic mitigation was a stop sign, which everybody hates, and it gets knocked down every month or two. But they really wanted to have some impact to make those streets safer because the traffic has increased dramatically on a couple of those streets that lead to 32nd to go to the barrier. And I'm not sure that the traffic flow picked up the impact of all of those cars. So I would be concerned as we do the next barricade that we're maybe widening the area so that we get more input from those people who will be impacted by the increased traffic in their neighborhood heading toward those gates when they're opened.
It's great feedback.
Okay. Councilmember Jarrett?
Thank you. Laura, we're having traffic studies being done right now, aren't we? I see the tubes across the roads throughout the city.
Yes, annually we collect traffic volumes citywide, and we're doing that again this year.
Well, that brings up, on page 2 of the revised resolution, it says information gathering by city staff. In rereading that, it was a little confusing. It starts out, city staff shall gather all data available on existing barricades, etc., including the following, and the first bullet is existing traffic volumes and speeds. I don't think you mean the traffic volume and speeds on the barricade. You mean on the streets throughout the city? Is that what you mean?
Specifically to the neighborhood, we don't collect traffic volumes on every single street in the city annually, mostly collectors and arterials. And so if we were to, for example, when we looked specifically at the 32nd, for example, we went in with a targeted traffic data collection where we went to all the streets around the barricade to get existing volumes and speeds, so we would know what the baseline was on.
So I would suggest maybe some clarifying language in there, existing traffic volumes and speeds on
Adjoining or
neighboring
Yeah.
streets. And then the next bullet says predicted traffic volumes with and without the barricade in place. That would imply on neighboring streets also. And then you have a history of barricade placement and surrounding infrastructure improvements. I think that means looking back at the plat conditions. Is that what's implied there?
No, it's implied there as understanding and having information on whether or not sidewalks exist, just doing a survey of the neighborhood. I think, for example, at 32nd, we brought back a map to City Council showing where there was pedestrian facilities and there was not pedestrian facilities, and where there were stop signs and not stop signs. It's just collecting all the information.
Well, then I would suggest that we have another bullet which adds a reviewing adjoining plat conditions relevant to the barricade.
Okay.
Because in some cases, the adjoining plat may say this barricade shall be removed after a certain time or if certain conditions happen.
We should focus on asking questions here and getting clarifications, and after we've moved and approved a resolution, we'll go to advice,
discussion.
I guess. Next, Councilmember Odell.
Thank you. I'll put this in the form of a question then. Under the public involvement, the open house, has our procedure in the past been to email out or send postcards out to people within a certain geographic area? And is that all we've done?
So when we did the open house for the 32nd, and typically for, we're pretty aggressive. We do email alerts, postcards to the neighborhood, put it in our newsletter, put it on our website. So we did as much as we felt we could reach out to the neighborhood. I think in every single neighborhood, we have contacts on the subjects, and so we individually mailed them and made sure that they passed out to, their homeowners association or their neighbors.
Follow up. Is it possible there are others who are not in this particular catch basin, to use a term, that might be interested? Going back to Deputy Mayor Huckabay's comments about the impact of 32nd Street going beyond that. Should we broaden the notification methodology somehow? Perhaps, you say the city website, but also maybe the city newsletter or using the public media?
It was in the newsletter. I think using public media is a great suggestion. And then as well, I think we could, each influence area would be established individually, and I think we could take that feedback as to widen it, be more conservative, invite more, go out further.
We got to be careful on that one, however, because the people who live in the immediate proximity of the barricade, they're the most affected one. In the past that we had tried to expand the area, it's a tough one. And I hear Deputy Mayor's comment that we need to get a broader public involvement in this process. That's a critical component of what we're doing here. We need to find a way to balance that with the needs of the people that are living in the immediate vicinity of the property owners too.
I agree with that, Ben. My concern, though, is there may be other people whose lives are being affected by the fact they cannot use that as a way of accessing a part of town.
And I think that's what the Deputy Mayor was trying to say. That's what we need to pay attention to that.
Okay, Councilmember Whitten.
Laura, I support the changes and the increased flexibility, but I have a thought that maybe we should be taking a second look at the whole process. I see that the 42nd Street barricades have come to us vociferously, both sides of the issue, have strong opinions and have for ever since I've been on the council in 2004, making their positions known. So that's been 10 years in the process. Nothing is going to change. With Southeast 32nd, the whole neighborhood changed. There were new developments. There were road improvements. There was a lot of development that occurred. So it was a work in process for 10 years. It also had been an issue, but everything had been evolving there. On the north end, there is nothing to evolve that I can see except to open the barricade or not open it, pretty much. And then we have Beaver Lake, which is another major one with the links between Trossig's and Beaver Lake Drive, and there are two very important sides to that, those barricades and the potential removals too. But I see in terms of timing of looking at these barricades issue, totally distinct ripeness for a decision. I think with Beaver Lake, that road is still in need of tremendous multi-million-dollar improvements to make it safe for a very high volume of traffic. It's got windy roads. There are big stretches with no pedestrian safety nets, homes and lots of driveways. Yet it's an important link for an area that only has one way in and one out for hundreds and hundreds of homes. So I see at some point in time Beaver Lake may be ripe for consideration, but that it's not until some of the infrastructure and improvements either are being made or at least appear in our TIP plan for improvements within a certain scheduled time. on the other hand, the 42nd East North End barricades, I don't see how anything is going to change there. So I think it's ripe for a decision. So, and I also think it's the one that's most speculatively not safe, and I don't know. But the big issue to me on the north end is the safety issue. And is there anything that could be done to make that as safe as most of our other roads? And I don't think so, but I don't know. I'm not the traffic expert.
We're not here to discuss individual
So-
issues, but before
What I
you
was saying in this.
before you make a recommendation, we need to approve a motion. So if you have a question that goes to this issue here,
I was going to ask her, does she feel that there's something in terms of ripeness for consideration of a particular barricade that should be built into this resolution, so we can go forward with those that are ready to make a decision and make that decision, and defer on a long-term basis those that aren't ready for consideration.
I think you're raising some important points, Councilmember Withen. What I may suggest that that's not a topic that either Laura or I and anybody in the staff level gave any consideration, because what we were focusing on, making the surgical change. If you want us to think about that, perhaps could come back to you on that one, we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
just to close, I think in some ways that change, that surgical change at the beginning kind of addresses that, wouldn't you say, in a sense that the council may decide to take a particular project in hand, whereas they may not as well?
Correct. I think it leaves the flexibility to the council.
More
to make the
flexibility to the
decision.
council to decide what's on the top
Yeah.
list and what's not? Just to ask that as a question. Okay, any other questions now? Not deliberations, questions.
We'll go into discussion.
A comment or sorts of clarification.
Get your, you have a,
Honestly, think we should.
Having spent many evenings arguing over may and shall, because these really are
there's a big
very
change.
different,
These are
different
long
words.
discussion.
This really does make a big difference, and it is flexibility for us. It seems to give the impression of a sense of urgency also in this sentence, I think, that it's going to happen now. And I think recently we've had a lot of interest in the barricades for a reason. It hasn't been on our agenda. But by changing the shall to a may, it also, I think, takes off what the connotation of an urgency that goes along with this, so, as well as the flexibility. So
Thank you.
I'd be supporting that.
Okay, let's go to a resolution. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2014? Is there a number for this yet, or?
So moved.
Second,
I'm not there yet.
too late.
We need the resolution
Well, if we
number
don't get a
first.
number, we aren't going to pass it anyway.
Yeah. I don't think it's XXX, so.
No.
That would mean 30, and I don't think that's what we want.
If you're Roman.
Okay.
579.
Do I have a motion to adopt resolution? What's that?
577.
Do you have a motion to adopt resolution number 214577?
So moved.
Modifying the
Second.
formal public process to be followed when evaluating whether or not a barricade and/or emergency gate should remain or be removed from the public right-of-way.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Oh, all right.
Second chance, okay. Final comments, I'll start down.
discussion.
That's what I'm saying. Discussion, I'll start at the end.
I support this resolution, but I think we also need to look at a way of identifying those barricades which are ripe for determination, and then decide if we want to apply the full process or if we might have some abbreviated process. So while I'm supportive of this resolution, I think we need to do more with it, and would ask, I know we can't do anything while we are down 2 directors who have just left, and one is...
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I said, I know we can't do anything immediately because of our absence of 2 directors who just left for promotions, and another one who is on 6th leave and who we're hoping will be back soon, but isn't here now. So anyway, I know we can't do anything immediately, but I would like to see on our work agenda, looking at prioritizing, not prioritizing, but looking at the specific barricades and identifying those which we really feel we should be making permanent decisions on, and those that we don't. We've been 10 years at this, and some of them need to be need closure.
Okay. Councilmember Odell, you have anything to add?
Yeah. I agree with Councilmember Witten that there are certain examples here which probably need to be brought to closure one way or another. My thinking is that there is a citizen group that's done an awful lot of work on this subject, and I think we can take advantage of their work as part of developing some sort of at least rough Pareto of what barricades on the basis of inspection, if you will, casual inspection, should either remain or be moved or go to the top of the list for removal. The ones in the middle are going to be the problem, and I think we have to rely on professional staff for their advice on that. But I will support the motion.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Huckabee.
I'm going to support the motion as well, and I also do support Councilmember Witten that maybe we can do some gross analysis here and see if there's some that we aren't going to ever open and put them on a list, and others that, are down 20 years down the road. And I think, developing some criteria in the way we look at those, one of which might be more development around there. But I would like to see that, and I would like to see how we can bring more people into the process so that everybody feels that the impacts that they're going to be feeling will be addressed.
Okay, Councilmember Valderrama.
I'm supportive of this resolution. I'm also supportive of the modifications that were brought in on number 3 at the suggestion of the Citizens for Sammamish, and Councilmember Odell had been mentioning that earlier on, because it allows for the new council member, particularly Keller, it was to allow citizens after that they've accepted that the barricade is coming in to sit down with them and talk about mitigation when the emotion's a little bit different out there. That said, I also support Councilmember Witten, but I would be more explicit and more emphatic in it. I mean, we've had extensive discussions on this subject at the retreat. Instead of alluding to, we know directly the 3 barricades that have been mentioned in subtle forms, Beaver Lake, 42nd and 56th Street. So why don't we just state them explicitly that we're going to look at them to take them off permanently from the list, and let's just be much more explicit and quit kicking it down the road and just do it.
Okay. Councilmember Jaron, you had a couple of changes. Do you want to talk to those?
Yes, I'm supportive of the resolution in general, and on page 2, under information gathering by city staff, I'd like to make a motion to amend that section, the first bullet to read existing traffic volumes and speeds on neighboring streets, and then to add a 4th bullet, which would read adjoining plat conditions relevant to the barricades.
Do we need to make a motion to change that?
Yeah, I just did.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Well, hold on just a second. Do you understand the motions, Laura, so that you get them right? Okay, so all in favor?
We can do it one at a time or both together?
Well,
Let's do them both.
Both together. It's amendment.
Do we have a motion then, Councilmember
Yeah, I
Jaron?
made
And we
that
have a
motion.
second?
We do?
Any further discussion of that?
I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion.
Okay, or a suggestion?
There's a suggestion, really, going back to the public open house piece of this. I would like to, under where it says, the meeting shall be advertised on the city's website, I'd like the verbiage of that to be broadened.
Point of order, we have an amendment on the table. that
I
we're
think we have an
discussing.
amendment. We can come
Let's
to
vote
yours.
on yours and then come back to
Thank you.
this.
Okay, let's do that. All in favor of the amendment by Councilmember Jaron?
Which is what exactly? I'm sorry, I'm so confused.
Why don't you repeat
here.
your amendment?
The first bullet on page 2, under information gathering by city staff, will read existing traffic volumes and speeds on neighboring streets.
Okay.
And then there'll be a fourth bullet, and it will read adjoining plat conditions relevant to the barricade.
Okay. Got that? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, getting back to Councilmember Odell, you wanted to make a further amendment?
Thank you. Yes, I would. I would like to have the wording under public open house number 1, gather information.
Where? I'm sorry.
Again, this is on page 2, roughly halfway down,
Okay, got it.
where it says, "This meeting shall also be advertised on the city's website." I would like to broaden that to include public media as appropriate. In other words, the local newspapers.
Okay. Any-
Well, I would basically suggest that the meeting shall be advertised on the city's website and all appropriate public media.
That's a little open-ended.
Well, I'm giving the city flexibility on deciding what's public,
Okay.
what's appropriate.
Councilmember Whitten?
Well, you know, with the 32nd Street barricade, whatever I know you didn't think certain people were informed, but there were handouts at the grocery store. There were individual mailings. There were so many things going on. Even I found out, and I don't usually pick up on some of that. So maybe, I mean, it was a much broader than just the public media. It was a neighbor-to-neighbor handout and reach out. And they were there. I went to 2 or 3 of them, and I think I missed just one. There were hundreds of people that appeared at these things. So anytime you identify just one and don't have the general language, you're limiting it too much in terms of expectation. I think you need a broad public outreach and some language to that effect, and be as creative as possible. But I mean, you just need a very broad language there, not just public media. Even that's too limiting.
Oh, could I maybe make a suggestion, Councilmember Odell, to
Go ahead.
say the meeting shall be advertised on the city's website and all appropriate media, other media?
I think that's very close to what I said.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I mean, without calling out a particular,
Mhm.
yeah. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Up, Jaren.
Councilmember Jaron?
Well, you know, it's a little vague to say all appropriate other media. That would imply that perhaps we have to put an ad in the Sammamish Review,
Good point.
whereas we probably put it in our city newsletter, which goes to every household in the city. I don't see necessarily that we have to put an ad in the Sammamish Review. It might be a public
I would
notice
like to-
We
for
might have a
free.
difference of opinion over in the corner, but
Well, Don, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
sure.
The appropriate public media might simply be, instead of advertising on the city's website, I'm not sure what that means. I know we have a push capability on the website to get messages
Email,
out.
yeah.
And maybe if that's what is intended here, maybe that satisfies most of it. On the other hand, for very controversial things, some are going to be slam dunks, but there's a few that we know are going to be controversial. A broader reach effort might be appropriate.
Mr. City Manager, you have a comment?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I try to perhaps pay a little attention to the unintended consequences, some of the changes that we make here. Barricades are a very emotional issue for the folks that are involved with this thing, whether you're right next to it or you're about a block away from there. I'm concerned that if we leave that vague language in the sense saying that appropriate media, what is the definition of appropriate media? It may differ from one person to another person. I'm just trying to avoid the future conflicts for us as we go through the public process here. Can we perhaps just say that I think the Councilmember Odell's goal is to reach a broader public as effectively as we can possibly do. And maybe leave it that as that statement there, rather than describing it how we're going to do it. Because I'm afraid that if we get into the definition of how we're going to do it, that definition is going to change from person to person. Does that make sense to you guys?
Councilmember Odell, do you?
Well, I understand what the city manager is concerned with. My objective is simply to cast a broad enough net here that we get people who we don't realize may be interested but yet are. For instance, if I lived in Windsor Green and was interested in the 244th Bridge when that was being looked at, or maybe even Beaver Lake, even better example. Say I live in Beaver Lake and work in Redmond. Well, the 244th Bridge gives me another option on how to get there. And we may encounter more of that.
Okay. Any other? Councilmember Keller.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I respect the fact that, some of these things have been here for a while. They're not as complicated as most, and so maybe it seems like we can make a decision. But the whole point of this is there's a formal process that needs to go through. It needs to go through. There's public meetings that need to be conducted, and so from a staff commitment, from a commitment from us in time, this is a long process. Even if it seems like it's a slam dunk, it's not. The easiest one is going to have to go through a pretty long process. So my concern, for one thing, is that we leave the impression that we can just do, we can get some of these over with quickly. I think that it's going to take us some planning to be able to address these methodically through time. I just wanted to make that comment.
Mayor, may I suggest some language?
Okay, let's hear from you.
The meeting shall also be advertised in a way that will reach the targeted audience.
The what? The what audience?
Targeted.
The targeted
Oh, okay.
audience.
Yeah,
Is that acceptable?
that's what
Yes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Huckabee.
Yes, I would support that because even though Councilmember Witten knew about the meetings, many of us that were intensely interested didn't know, including the person that sent the email who used to walk from her home down that street every day to Marionwood to work and was not aware of the meeting. So, and I think there are lots of ways, reader boards and other things that are well beyond public, the public newspapers and so forth. So I like that language. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Do you want to revise your motion slightly to the language was given by Laura?
I will go with Laura's language.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, any other further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Did you have any further comments, Councilmember Keller? So everybody's had a chance. Do we've had a motion and a second. So all in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
As amended, I should say. All opposed? Okay, we've gone through that one.
Ask too that we give direction to staff sometime in the next 6 months to come back to us with the points I made that most people agreed with.
Whether 6 months or a year would, something like that, I think we could probably do that.
Probably it's the next year. That's what I would guess.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
wouldn't
not
wanna
just
put a
simply
six-
filling the vacancies. Once the vacancies are filled, it's going to take those people some time to get up to speed with the other stuff.
But I
so.
think the message is out there, so, Okay, we go to item 5. This is a resolution. The City of Sammamish City Council supporting King County Transportation District's Proposition Number 1 as authorized by TD 21403 and placing it on the April 22nd, 2014 special election. This is just a motion to endorse, supporting. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
We do, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to try to do tag team here, so maybe with our esteemed city clerk here, Melanie. This is a proposed ballot measure. This is about to be asked for voters to vote on the $11 average per month potential tax increase to pay for the transit services as well as the maintenance and operation of the countywide the road system. The county owns about 1,350 miles of roads. They don't have resources to maintain those roads. And that affects us. It affects this particular proposition affects us in a number of ways. Number one, we do have a limited transit services. Hopefully, we will be able to keep those transit services if this proposition passes. Number two, as you come and go out of our city limits, as you travel through the unincorporated King County roads, you do see the conditions of the unincorporated King County roads. They're not maintained well, partly because the county doesn't have resources to do that. Lastly, this would generate roughly about a $1.2 million annually in revenues for the city. We can actually use those revenues to better maintain our streets as well. For those reasons alone, we're recommending for your favorable consideration of the approval of this resolution.
Thank you, Ben. That was a nice job.
Thank you, Melanie.
You sit down now, Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie.
Is that it then?
Then you need to, Mr.
Yeah, I
Mayor,
do.
ask any
I do want
pros.
to invite anyone to the podium who is here, either representing an organization on their own who would like to speak against or making this resolution. Last chance. There's only 5 of you left. Okay.
County staff.
7.
Okay, seeing no one, any questions of our city manager on this? Just keep it at questions, not you approve or don't approve.
Well, Mr. Mayor, do invite the audience to speak for it, too,
Yeah, you said against. You said,
He said that.
Yeah.
or against, did you say?
Yeah.
4 is actually our city manager.
Well, no, the
no,
public.
the public.
Okay, I'll open it up to anyone who wishes to speak for it. Okay,
There
I
you
guess
go.
we have one. Give your name and address.
Greg Reynolds, 4329 210th Place Northeast, Sammamish 98074. Actually, in speaking for the transit tax, I would hope that the Metro Transit would make some improvements in the city of Sammamish, like pullouts for the buses, so that when they stop to let people off the bus or load the bus, people putting their bicycles on the front, that the traffic on 228th isn't completely ground to a halt for sometimes a period of a minute or two. When the sidewalk project was done on the north end, there wasn't any planning at that point to put a pull-out lane for the transit buses. But given that the north end of the plateau has limited access because of barricades, and because 228th Sahalee Way is a 2-lane road, it would seem prudent that that Metro make improvements for their services. The one other thing is that from a recent newspaper article, I understood that 31% of the transit budget is paid for by East Side cities that receive only 17% of the service. So any approval or assent of a tax increase for this for transit should include a greater benefit to the community on the east side, particularly Sammamish, where we have, I believe, 2 bus routes. And the biggest buses we see are the Microsoft Connector, that despite having a transit station on each end of their campus, found that Metro Transit was inadequate to serve their needs, so they created their own transit system. So I think that I'm all for transit, but I think they're doing a real poor job, and we need to, as a city, ask them to provide us better service or eliminate us from their taxing district. So, thank you.
Okay. Do I have I guess at this point I want a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll start down at this end. Councilmember Keller, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I can make a comment that
Get your, we want to hear you.
I have a feeling that Councilmember Odell will probably have a comment on this also. Having attended the PIC meetings where there's been discussion about this, there's been a lot of question about Metro and their financial analysis of and the way they present their financial analysis to the public, that it's not easily reviewed, and their interest was to get to the cost at Metro, to be able to see them more, and they felt a little uncomfortable voting for this without actually having a better analysis available because of the cuts. But they did come to the conclusion that they needed to support this because the cuts are going to happen, regardless of how the financials are presented to us. But they did, in fact, authorize a committee on the PIC, from the PIC meeting, that is going to be reviewing the statements and Metro's reports that they give out to get a better understanding and work with them. So I think that's all good, and I'll be supporting this because the cuts are here, and I don't think we can really afford to let the cuts be enacted. So I'll be supporting this.
Councilmember Jaron?
I'll be supporting it also, but I did want to make a few comments too. And I think that committee, is that really the caucus of the Regional Transit Committee, Sound City Association members that will be reviewing that?
It's effectively that group, Don, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is the logical group, since we send you there to learn more about that. I did want to comment on what the citizen, Mr. Reynolds, said, pullouts for buses. That certainly is a discussion often. I've heard Metro say that they don't like to do that because then they have to get back into the flow of the traffic, which can then be dangerous if the friendliest city in the nation doesn't want to let them back into the flow. The issue about the greater benefit for the east side, we've discussed that for the 15 years I've been on the council, and we had a formula, 40-40-20 formula for new service going preferentially to the suburban areas. That formula has been removed, and there was a strategic plan replacing it. And Metro has promised to show us where new service is being applied so that we can figure out the formula ourselves to make sure that the east side and the south end are getting their fair share. It is certainly true that we are contributing more capital-wise to Metro than we're getting percentage-wise in service. But that's understandable with the core city being more dependent on transit. I would mention that Sammamish does have more than two bus routes. We have the 216, the 219, 269, the 927, and at sometimes the Sound Transit 554, which allows you to come home late from Seattle and be able to get home. We did have an email sent. I don't know if it was sent to everybody on the council, but I got it from a Mercer Island council member who was opposed to this Proposition 1. And one thing he says in there is, understandably, passing Proposition 1 decreases the likelihood King County voters will also vote for a follow-on gas tax increase, referring to the state package, if they ever get to state package. But in the Proposition 1, there is a paragraph which refers to the state package. If there is a state package, the King County district can choose to replace this current package with the state package, and I think that's what they would probably do if they see those sources of taxation more fair than what they're allowed to do now. So that said, I will be supporting this proposition.
Councilmember Valderrama?
I'm very sensitive and supportive and value the transportation that we have in King County, and I have several of my kids who ride not only the routes that you mentioned, but also 26 and 28 that are packed. And even in the Seattle Times recently, they talked about 21, that they need shovels to get people in now, so it's difficult to imagine the cuts. That said, however, all of the people who have reviewed this, the PIC, the Seattle Times, the Municipal League, and even our beloved Sammamish Review have used titles such as hold your nose and vote yes as their editorials. This is not as clean a process as would be described. Mr. Reynolds had already mentioned as far as what are we putting in and what are we getting out of this. In the meantime, if you look at the last 6 years, King County has raised their fare rates 4 times. They have another one coming up within the next year. Ridership has already gone back to pre-recession levels, and some say it's past the pre-recession levels, so they have more riders with the higher fares. They've also been getting state tax money to go forward. If you look at that, and then you look at the Washington Association, the Washington Policy Center talks about that. If you look at the last number of, I think they had 10 years, you've had an increase in cost despite their cuts that they've taken, and which I'm appreciative of. But you've had Metro raise their rates an 83% versus an inflation of 33%. When you add that to what are we getting on the east side and the south side, just going a little bit further from the numbers that the 17% that Mr. Reynolds had mentioned, we're currently putting in 67% of the money, getting 35% of the service, so we're getting a lot less value for our service on the east than the south. And as was mentioned previously, for the 35%, we're getting 17% here, so we're not getting the value we should be getting. It's not addressing the real underlying cost increases. The Municipal League says that this at best would be a Band-Aid. So I think there needs to be a fundamental change on it. On the state level, I was talking with Representative Sen, there's a concern on some of our representatives, by doing this, are we pushing the busing, metros, and road transportation away from the state and trying to tell the counties that they should be picking up? It might be the wrong message to be sending the state. So for all those reasons, I will be voting against this.
Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Huckabee.
I will be supporting it, probably for the opposite reasons that Councilmember Romero is not supporting it. My experience with Metro is long and deep, 25-year bus rider. I've served on the East Side Transportation Partnership for many years, fighting the 40-40-20 fight. I served on the Regional Transit Committee, actually pushed through, with the support of others, 2 raises in Metro fares, which were very difficult. Many of the people in Seattle did not want to do that, but on the east side, we felt we needed to. I am in frequent contact with my bus buddies. The bus situation is so challenging here on the east side that it is virtually standing room only, because our buses now go back to the Highlands. They do not go directly from Sammamish to Seattle as they used to. By the time they get on the bus, it's standing room only. People are actually, who work in Pioneer Square, are going back to the convention center to catch a bus so they can get a seat to come home. If we have further cuts, it's going to be much more difficult. For those of you that drive into Seattle in the mornings, which I sometimes have the privilege of doing, it is just horrendous. I don't know how we will manage to get from here to Seattle if we throw another 20 or 30% of the people out in traffic and in cars. The Highlands Park and Ride is practically full by 9 o'clock. Mercer Island Park and Ride is filled by 8:30. I have looked at Metro's budget over many years. It is a challenge. They are a very large system. It's a very difficult system to work. That's not necessarily an excuse, but they provide service to a very wide metropolitan area. And so it's somewhat difficult to send buses to the outlying area, and then people criticize them because they're coming back to the central district, which is where the bus barn is, empty. And people see that, and they don't quite understand how the system works. I think part of the problem is that when the Municipal League and others attack this, yes, this is a Band-Aid. The state did not step up and do what it needed to do. And so this is a desperation measure to try and hold a line on a system that where a line needs to be held. Seattle is so far behind where it should be or needs to be in terms of public transit. I would hate to see this go down, because it'll be years before we get anything out of the state. And we really have, for our community, we have so many people who are going to Bellevue and Seattle to work that it's going to be, I think it's going to reflect on the success of our community if we cannot provide that sort of service to them.
Councilmember Odell.
Thank you. If Metro were an airline, it would have made multiple trips through bankruptcy court already, the way the place is run. I have had the privilege of spending a fair amount of time on this issue as a result of my membership on the Regional Transit Committee, the Sound Cities Public Issues Committee, Eastside Transportation Partnership, just like Deputy Mayor Huckabee has, and I know Mayor Vance has also been involved up to his eyeballs in a number of these issues as well. I'm in a position where I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place. There's been more heat, light, energy, and oxygen expended on this whole issue than any other single thing I can think of at least at the county level. I'm going to hold my nose and vote for this. I've been down to Olympia lobbying for it. I've been face-to-face with the chairman of the Senate Transportation Committee who refused to budge on the state transportation tax, irrespective of the logic, locked in solely on political motives. The problem is, it's been stated that if we do not do this, the consequences are pretty immense for the whole area. And it will affect the economy of the area. It will also affect the value of homes that are in the outlying areas. This is not, if we do not do this, the results are not going to be good for your property values. Because if you think, if you like the jam-ups in the morning today on 520, 405, the intersection on I-90, 405, on I-90 and 520 going into Seattle, you'll love what happens if this does not happen, because a lot of the people who are in the buses won't be able to be on the buses. So what are they going to do? Drive or stop working. So I think we need to support this. There's a lot of good ideas that are out there. I'd love to keep pressure on Metro to come clean with some of their numbers that have been asked for by the Sound Cities Association. I think there are certain things that could be done. Mr. Reynolds' idea of pullouts is something that I first proposed when I was first elected to the council. And I got the answer then that we heard today about, well, it interferes, Metro doesn't like it. Metro doesn't seem to mind holding a traffic flow for 4 minutes while they're stopped and interfering with everybody else. And flow is key to making this place work, guys. So as we redo 228th and Sahalia Way in the future, I think this should be part of our plan. Metro be damned. There are a number of places where they can pull off today, and the difference in flow when they can do that versus where they can't is noticeable. So I'll get off my soapbox here and say, yes, I will support it, but I think we as a council need to keep working with our regional bodies to make sure that this gets addressed at the state level. Thank you.
Councilmember Whitten?
I support it reluctantly, but we need Metro. Metro is important as a regional resource, and frankly, Sammamish in isolation on a plateau. We're a bedroom community, whether we like to acknowledge that or not. We need every opportunity that we have from a regional standpoint and a Sammamish standpoint to make traffic better and to make getting from one place to another easier. And, you know, historically, we lost a lot of our funding with some of the IMAN initiatives. And we're to a point where we have no steady funding for roads or for Metro, and it's really a shame. We need to refine those sources of income on a regular basis. Sustainability of income is important for every organization, including Metro. So I support it.
Thank you. I do serve on the Regional Transit Committee, and I should say this new tax, I guess you could say, is about maintaining a system. It's not going to be about improving It's about maintaining it. And I suppose you could argue, and I know others have argued before I got on the committee, about the 40, 20, and all other schemes to try to get more transit into Sammamish and other east side communities. But I can tell you that every person in Redmond and Bellevue and Kirkland and Issaquah and everywhere down the line that steps into a bus instead of stepping into their car is helping Sammamish commuters, whether they're on the bus or they're driving a car, get to where they need to go. So whether the bus actually goes through Sammamish, and we do have buses, as Councilmember Jaron mentioned, we have 4, perhaps 5 lines on occasion. Every person who gets on a bus elsewhere in our county helps our traffic, and so I will be supporting it. I do want to reiterate that I spent a lot of time in Olympia this past year and talking to people here in town and around the region, as did Councilmember Odell and Councilmember Gerund, and I know some of the others of you in different occasions. We couldn't get a few more votes in the state Senate to get this to happen. Maybe they will in the next budget session, which is next January. But we couldn't get it to happen. Basically, it was politics over the real need for funding for roads, not just for transit. So I will be voting for this. Okay, everyone has had a chance. All in favor of the motion. The resolution is 2014-578. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
By a vote of 6 to 1, the resolution passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Let's go to council reports. I'll start off by saying I was very pleased to be able to hand one of our own a nice award on Friday night at the Sammys. Don Sanders was given I guess you could say the MVP award for the year, the Founders Award, and it was a pleasure and an honor for me to hand that to her. I know what was interesting was that all the speeches that came after, I'd say half of them mentioned her name and what they were all doing. So it was a pleasure, and I enjoyed it very much. I'll go down to that end if anyone has a council report.
No new report for me.
Councilmember Jaron?
Well, I've got some reports in the packet, and also we had a Kokanee work group today, and I think I'll leave Tom Odell to give the report on that.
Go ahead. I've got a couple of other things.
Okay.
You can talk about the sturgeon too, Don.
Well, I reported at the Kokanee work group that this year's kokanee crop was really very low compared to last year, and it was expected because there's a 3-year kokanee cycle, and 3 years ago it was very low. And I reported that although the kokanee return was very low in Ebright Creek, there was discovered to be a 50-pound sturgeon. And it startled everybody until Tom Odell pointed out what day today is. But nevertheless, we're making good headway in our group towards some grant money and working towards what's the plan called, Tom?
It's the Urban Wildlife Refuge Partnership.
Yeah, Urban Wildlife Refuge Partnership, and we have a blueprint that we're putting together for the recovery of the kokanee. And so, but to remember on April, well, we're going to have a fry release at Wally's.
April 25th, I think.
Yeah, and some.
There are actually 2 of them.
Thursday and Friday, and some.
Yeah, there's one on the 24th, which will be for Blackwell Elementary.
Oh, for
here
kids.
in the Plateau.
Uh-huh.
And the one and that's at 11 o'clock. The one on the 25th, the following day, is at noon. It'll be the larger ceremony, and Dow Constantine will be there, and there'll be 65 students brought in from Renton for the first time that they've participated in this. So we're trying to increase broaden the public awareness of this whole effort, and so we're splitting it over 2 days. And Tom, I know we contacted you about the one date. I hope you can do both. If you can't, Don and I will pinch hit for you.
And the other point I wanted to make is that the City of Sammamish and City of Issaquah contributed some money to hatchery expansion to handle the kokanee supplementation program, which will go on until 2021. And hopefully by that time, we'll have a sustainable fishery. So that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, just as a reminder, I'm told that we have a couple of lengthy city manager reports, plus apparently in a lengthy executive session, so please give the short version. So that means you, Councilmember Valderrama.
All right. I attended the Sammys in addition to Councilmember Odell, Gerund, and Vance at a minimum out there. Well received. Always great to see the public support of volunteer and philanthropic organizations in our city. We have been receiving requests to see if we can give them more visibility and signage, so I'm hopeful that we will be able to get that on our look-ahead agenda. Also, I just wanted to know, we had talked about Citizens for Sammamish. They have a meeting coming up on Monday. The topic, I believe, will be water districts. That'll be coming up. Finally, I've had a number of citizens come and ask me about the King County and the East Lake Sammamish Trail, so hopefully we can get an update of what's going to be coming up on our trail from them. That's all I've got on mine.
Deputy Mayor Huckabee.
Well, I want to remind all the council that at the retreat, we agreed that we would put all our meeting notes in writing. And I am taking notes and will be sending you a form in the morning so you can do so. And I have to just take a moment to compliment Don, because he did write up the meeting notes for the national meeting that he went to. And I was reading that on the way to Wenatchee, and I've been bugging Ben about how we can work with our cell phone providers or the cell towers to have battery backups, and lo and behold, it's on the national agenda. So we've got somebody fighting in Congress for us. So, and I really appreciate having that and the opportunity to read it at leisure. So thank you, Don.
To date, you're the only one.
Councilmember Odell?
Thank you.
I don't think so.
Again, the brief version.
The brief version, yes. Well, Sammy Awards was last Friday. Good show. I'll leave it at that. We'll be thinking about what we do next year. Secondly, couple further things in the kokanee work group. The return this year was as Don said, low. And just to give you an example, last year they collected 250,000 kokanee eggs for the hatchery. This year is 12,000.
Wow.
So it's we're not out of the woods yet with our little red fish, folks.
Oh, that's really down.
The last thing I want to talk about, and Melanie, I'm going to need that thing brought up, is on my way to National League of Cities. I went through Chicago O'Hare Airport, and when I got off the airplane, I noticed there was a group of emergency vehicles surrounding an aircraft that was parked a couple gates away on our concourse. And I thought, well, fuel spill or something. As I got off the plane, walked down the concourse, I saw everyone looking out, which is natural, and then I looked out on the ramp, and the vehicles were all lined up into formation with the firefighters, policemen lined up in front of their vehicles, lights on and everything, and they were all dressed in their gear. And then I looked over at this American 737 that had a Marine Honor Guard next to it, and a flag draped casket being loaded on the aircraft. Just a reminder that there's a real cost to what's going on in other parts of the world right now. So the point of this visual is I took this down at the Home Depot in Redmond, and they have 3 of these out there. And I would like for us to seriously consider about putting at least one up for all the public buildings in Sammamish. End of report.
All right. Councilmember Whitten.
No report.
Okay, that being done, we'll go to the city manager's reports, I should say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. First report is our Deputy Community Development Director, Susan Cesar, is going to give you. Hopefully, you don't end up spending a lot of time on this report because you had already done that jointly with the Planning Commission.
That never stops us.
two evening meetings.
We have a long executive session.
Right. This is simply just to kind of remind you what you agreed to it, and then the statement that you came out with for the vision statement. I want to also take this opportunity to thank Susan. Susan's responsibilities have increased significantly ever since the Cameron departure here. And she's not only doing our day-to-day operations, she's also helping me on the many front on the long-term issues, including Klahani, compliance, and a lot of stuff going on. So thank you, Susan, for those efforts.
Thank you, Ben.
Let's give them a quick and brief report on
Okay.
the vision, please.
I have the brief version here. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Susan Cesar, Community Development. And as you'll remember, we had visioning sessions in February. There were 2 joint meetings of the City Council and the Planning Commission, one on February 4th and the other on February 11th, 2014. On the first one, our consultant studio, 3MW, presented some background material, went over some national trends, the Sammamish profile that was developed specifically for our city, and there was a large summary of the public outreach which informed that process, the vision process. After that material, we went around through all the participants and came up with some short statements that were then sorted by topic. The consultants took all that information back and came back to you on February the 11th with phrases that were developed for each of the topical areas from February 4th, and you made refinements at that meeting. Just a reminder of where we are and where this fits into the bigger process. The Planning Commission has been working hard, and they've gone through a number of elements, those in the first list already, and they have yet to complete the items in the second list, and those are the ones that would most benefit from this updated working vision. So reminder again about what the purpose of this exercise was, and it's to guide the comprehensive plan work of the Planning Commission. And that this vision statement is a working vision and will be finalized by you, the City Council, when you're reviewing the comprehensive plan later on. And with that, here is the working vision statement that was developed from your hard work. And we very much appreciated the time that you took and the Planning Commission took in devoting 2 nights to this exercise. So any comments or questions?
Need a period at the end of.
And I think you have discussed this very extensively in 2 meetings, so.
I know, but there is one here.
Okay, Councilmember Jarrett, question?
Yes, thank you. I read it, and I don't recognize some of the phrases from our 2 meetings, and and quite frankly, I'm a little disappointed that if you look at the 2003 one, it talks about outstanding recreational opportunities, and recreational opportunities isn't even mentioned in the working vision. Our parks and our active recreation. So I'm a little disappointed in that, but it's a working vision statement, and we can address it when the comp plan comes to us.
Correct.
Any other thoughts or questions? Councilmember Odell.
Very succinctly, I had the same reaction Don had.
Councilmember Witten.
I sure like the old one a lot better. This doesn't get to the idea that we are unique in the region being a bedroom community. Dig that. But I know you don't like it, but I don't see the alternative here that suggests that we're unique and we provide the housing opportunities. We don't have a broad range of housing. I mean, 10% of it is apartments or condos. We do have some choices, and we're making more choices, but the predominant character is missed in this statement.
Councilmember Valderrama.
Yeah, I'd like to follow on what Councilmember Witten said. I don't know of any city that doesn't claim to be family-friendly, and it misses completely the distinction that we had out there. We went ad nauseum discussing this with the last council. All 7 agreed on bedroom community because it's something that's always been utilized. It's owned by our community. It's distinctive to show that we are a bedroom. That was something that we even used in discussions when we were talking about Klahani with Issaquah and why Klahani was more pertinent to us. And it belonged in us as well as the geographic and topographical areas. I also agree with Council Member Jaron that the outdoor recreational facilities that we have should be mentioned on it. Thank you.
Councilmember Keller.
Yeah, I don't mean to pile on.
Bob.
Thank you. I don't mean to just pile on, but my first interpretation of this, the notes when I read it was it's very generic. I think it did hit a lot of the points that we talked about, obviously missing the recreational opportunities, but it hit those points, but it's just kind of generic. The 2003, it popped is, I guess, a better way to say it. If you look, there were a lot of active comments, a blend, residents actively involved. It was characterized outstanding recreational, a variety of community gathering. I think this one, if it's working, if this is a working statement that's going to be developed, I think that it just needs to be written with, so that it seems like it moves more. It's not just a generic statement.
Councilmember, or Deputy Mayor Huckabee first, and then Councilmember.
And I agree with all your comments, and I think if this is going to be a guide, the statement missing the recreational opportunities is pretty significant if we're going to weave into our comp plan the fact that we would like to have trails and connecting trails and walkways and pathways in the city. So I'm not sure if we can, maybe just put an addendum on there. But like you, I was somewhat disappointed in the language. It seemed pretty generic.
Another thought, Councilmember Whitten.
This is maybe a thought to go forward. Let's keep the old one and build on it.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Everybody likes the old one. It pops, and it's us. And why not? The two things I really liked in this one were Sammamish encourages local entrepreneurship and small business, and we're diverse and recognize diversity as a strength. I think those two are important points that aren't in the first one, but everything else about the first one, I like what it says. So that's where I'm coming from, is let's keep the old one and add these 2 points.
Okay, I think the consensus is that it needs a little work still.
Okay.
I would agree that it has a generic quality to it that I think it needs to be. I think the word active is right in terms of the kind of language that it uses, and perhaps some of the things that it perhaps should have mentioned that didn't mention. Keeping in mind that it's a future, so if we're talking about housing choices, it's what we want to be, not what we are necessarily.
Yes.
So we have to keep that in mind as well.
Mr. Mayor, it sounds like I'm hearing that the one recreational opportunities is the critical one. I wonder that if we can include that in the very first sentence.
Sure.
It says the Sammamish is welcoming and family-friendly community featuring excellent schools, safe streets, comma, excellent recreational opportunities, comma, a green and healthy natural environment and abundant open spaces.
The old
Let's
ones.
just include that in the very first sentence.
I would say, and I would think
Then we work on it, then we finalize.
we're just giving advice here. This is a working document, so.
Go back.
Any other final thoughts?
I have a question from it. So, following Councilmember Witten's, are we going to be working off of the 2003, is my understanding?
That's
and
what I'm
building on,
hearing.
or are we going to be looking at the 2035 vision statement and bringing in from 2003? I'm a little confused.
I think
on
we're
where
not
we are.
doing either. I think the people who are doing it can take our comments today and
Blend
make
them?
use of them and
Okay.
blend them or do whatever and come back with a final at some point.
Bob was first, then me.
Well, Bob,
Final thoughts here. We need to move on.
I just want to say that if you are going to make comments in the new one, featuring excellent schools aren't even mentioned in our. As I see it, it's not mentioned in our
Yeah.
existing vision. So really, the first one does include some components that are good. It just it sounds generic, and I think excellent schools is a good upfront
Yeah,
to start
good
with.
point.
our
It can be
community.
improved.
Also a good point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship and small business.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
We're moving ahead with this working in progress vision statement of Sammamish 2035. When we get to the point that adopting the comp plan, we recognize that we may have to tweak this further to adopt it finally by the council.
Okay. Next report, City Manager.
Mayor, this is the one that is going to be a quick one, and I know my Public Works Director's already walking out there, but I'm going to do this report very quickly. I know she can do a better job than I can, but I'm running against clock here. We have allocated $100,000 in our non-transportation fund to do some improvements on the Sahala Way. Subsequent to that, we did do a very detailed transportation analysis to remove the Parkway project from our long-range plan, and then revise our capital improvement plan. What we found out through that process is Sahala Way is becoming a concurrency project. What that means is a priority project. So I think that Laura is being a smart public works director, is raising the flags to me saying, you know, maybe we can spend this $100,000 better than just simply going out there doing a couple striping, couple lane markers and that. Since we have a long-range project is coming, let's use that money for that purpose. And then we come back to you with the scope of that project.
Yeah.
I think that's what she's doing. As
Sounds good.
outstanding public works director as she is, again, she's looking for every penny that we spend wisely.
Good job,
Yeah.
outstanding public.
Thumbs up on that? Okay, thumbs up?
okay with
Okay.
that? Good.
Usually we have a head nod, but for that, it's thumbs up, so.
Thank you.
There we go.
Good job.
Okay, next, we have an executive session concerning potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110(1I).
And
How long
Mayor,
do you
also,
think?
also it'll be a property acquisition matter.
In a property acquisition, do we have a RCW for that, or? Okay, fine, well, we'll assume that. And then, how long do you think this is going to take?
Probably about 35 minutes.
35 minutes, somebody marking the time?
5, just in the event.
Well, if we do 45, we can get out of it early. So we do
Okay.
35, we do the extension, we come back as.
Okay.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
We'll take a 5-minute break beforehand, and then we'll go do that. And then, but also, will there be action?
Yes.
There will be action afterwards, on both issues or just one?
Most likely both.
Both, okay, all right, good. 5 minutes, and we'll see you inside.
Public to come back.
Okay, we're back in session with the city council. We had a couple of issues discussed during executive session, and we're going to take action on 2 of them. The first one, do you want to introduce that subject first, and we have a motion?
Yeah, we're going to have our city attorney, Mike Canyon, to give you the suggested motion.
Council, this is to resolve the GOTJYOTI Paul land use appeal. We've discussed the matter, and I'd ask for a motion to authorize the city manager to sign a settlement agreement that's satisfactory to the city attorney, but that would include terms at a minimum that require Mr. Paul to transfer the property to a new owner, and that the new owner construct only one home on the property. It would require that the damage to the site be restored consistent with city code, and that would require Mr. Paul to pay a $10,000 penalty to the city.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So move. Second.
I don't believe we're going to discuss this, so all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
6-1, it is approved. We have a second issue. Mr. City Manager, you'll...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask, well, actually, this is an easement acquisition for the 2 park parcels that we've been talking about. One of them has been already donated, and second large parcel is in the process of being donated. It's a triangular piece that actually connects the 2 parcels with each other. We've been looking for opportunities to acquire an easement. Opportunity presented itself. We have negotiated with the property owner to give us roughly about 950 square feet of easement. To that end, we have a motion here, so I'm going to ask...
Can we hear the motion?
Yes, you can, but I want to first identify the properties are what
Sure.
we're acquiring from Mary Piggott, and it's parcels A and B of what we have called Big Rock Park. So it's a very critical piece connecting the 2, just the 2 corners touch, and it will provide access between the 2 for service vehicles and for trails. So yes, I would like to move to authorize the city manager to execute a purchase and sale agreement to acquire a trail easement and service easement necessary to link the two parks properties, parcels A and B of Big Rock Park.
I'll second.
And do we have a cost for that?
It's less than 4,400.
Okay, or less than 5,000?
Okay.
Less
Well,
than $5,000.
We
So
have a
moved.
second, I
I
believe.
seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is approved unanimously. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Thank you.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
9 o'clock. Good job.
We're adjourned.
9 o'clock.
I'll even